Well, I don't agree. I don't accept the premise of your question.
Oh, she doesn't know about quest statements. Oh no. Oh no. I wonder sometimes if it's because of all the weird social stigma we have around sex, whether it's guys pressuring women to have low body counts, whether it's women getting shamed out of like sexuality early on so they feel kind of like dirty about it, whether it's the physical act of entering another person. I don't know what it is, but I feel like
Sounds like shame to me.
I don't think I'm ashamed.
Someone is literally just. Okay, I'm gonna
Oh
go
wait,
outside.
I hear that. Yeah, are you okay, buddy?
You're slamming on the wall. Hold on, I'm gonna go run.
Okay. You know she did.
You don't mind if I call you Max, do you?
Not
I
at
feel
all.
like one of the things I'm worried that's going to happen today is I've seen a lot of your statements on this, and I think something you tend to do is to drill down into very, very specific, what we call in engineering edge cases. And I hope you can accept a limitation that I kind of have with my engineer brain. I have a really hard time not thinking about problems in concrete, specific terms. Like, what is the best way forward? So, as we're kind of planning this today, I just want to really be direct about what my mission objective is. I am hoping to convince you that your paradigm of consent that you voiced in many, many videos is one that may work in an individual sense, but it's a really, really poor system for not leading to harm for both men and women. And I really hope we can get into specifics and talk about that today.
I've been thinking about this with these like book bannings. These conservatives, they want to get rid of all the books in your kid's third grade classroom. Or they show some teachers TikTok, some teachers being weird and talking about their gay relationship or whatever. And I think there's this homogenizing push. The idea that all teachers should be the same to all students, that all conversations about consent and rape should be the same. And my content is not really supposed to replace your mainstream consent culture feminist perspective. It's not supposed to be mainstream. My videos about consent or my conversations about consent are for all the strange children, for all the my flock. I'm like the Peter Pan of rape. And I collect all the lost kids who got consent but still felt violated, or still felt that they violated somebody else, or who it wasn't consensual and yet they can't stop fantasizing about it. All the sick outliers, all the edge cases. So it's not that I think that the discussion of edge cases should replace the mainstream. It's that I think so many of us are edge cases sexually in one way or another. Especially me, in multiple ways, that you, to shave off all the edges is wrong and inhumane.
I hear you on that. So yeah, I do. And I think for some of the edge cases I've seen you posit on your channel,
Yeah.
I don't agree with many of them, but just for the sake of the discussion today, I would like to say I think that there are some edge cases sometimes that where consent is not clear between two individuals. But where I think would most be helpful to start is, while I was preparing for this, I realized I didn't really have a legal, clear definition of what rape was, right? It was actually really, really hard to find because the laws around rape are so different in various states.
Yeah.
But something really, really helpful is they actually had the same definition of rape in the United States since 1927, and Robert Mueller actually just changed it to be a very, very updated definition.
Are you talking
of the FBI
federally?
crime report.
Are you
Yes,
talking federal?
this is
Okay,
the federal definition of rape that is used in the FBI Uniform Crime Report. The penetration, no matter how slight, of the vagina or anus of any body part or object, or oral penetration by a sex object of another person, and this is the important part, without the consent of the victim. So what I found really, really interesting there is when you get into specific state law, they have a long list of things in like New York about what does and does not qualify consent. For instance, a woman that may be intoxicated, or any person that may be intoxicated would not be able to give consent in any case. So when I think we're talking about consent, in my view, And Max, I really hope we can work here today.
Uh-oh.
I'm asking myself, how can we set some standards of behavior that all of us, men and women, hold ourselves to, that make sure this doesn't happen? That make sure boys don't or men don't end up at the courthouse, trying to defend themselves from a sexual assault allegation, and making sure that women aren't literally traumatized for their entire life.
I can't tell what Briannu Wu did, if she had some huge mushroom trip or something recently, but she comes across like the most reasonable person in the world. I don't trust it. I don't trust it. In all of her conversations right now, she literally comes off as the most reasonable person in the world.
How can we avoid this from happening? What are kind of the standards we need to be thinking about? And I would love to know, just starting at the top end, what's kind of your view on that?
Well, I don't agree. I don't accept the premise of your question.
Okay.
Oh, she doesn't know about quest statements. Oh no. Oh no.
May make it hard to have a discussion today then.
I agree.
Well, how would you rephrase it, if I may ask, that you would accept the premise?
Well, now I don't know what we're talking about. I thought we were going to have
Oh.
a debate about consent.
Yes.
You are now saying that our role, even in a debate about consent, is
Yes.
to collaborate to come up with a list of strategies for society to help men avoid raping others.
I think if we're talking about consent, I think one of the things that makes it difficult for us to talk about this is expectations, right?
No,
I think
not right.
Well, just let me finish. One of the things, in my view, is I think there are different expectations from people here. I think men have different expectations. I think women have different expectations. I think if you have various kinks, you're gonna have different expectations. So, in my view, what I came here prepared to talk about today is I want to convince you that enthusiastic consent is the best standard that's going to lead to the least harm with people. Remember, I'm already agreeing with you. There are edge cases that exist out there. But I'm saying, as an aggregate, if you're a young man out there asking yourself, what is, in general, do I need to do to make sure I don't end up in court, right? If you're a woman asking yourself,
Is that what
how
young
can I
men
make
are
sure?
asking themselves?
I think that there are real questions about that. I think that is why there's a lot of, frankly, I think that's why some of your content has been popular.
Don't try to butter me up.
I'm not. I think there are real questions that young men are out there asking themselves. I think they are confused about what their expectations are. Like you yourself have said in your videos that, the society is really changing for what men are expected. For women, if you think about it, the generations that our mothers and grandmothers had were so wildly different than today.
She's just galloping.
Yeah.
She's just galloping. You gotta
No,
stop.
I can't tell if he's being serious or not.
Your videos that, the society is really changing for what men are expected. For women, if you think about it, the generations that our mothers and grandmothers had were so wildly different than today.
She's just galloping.
Yeah.
She's just galloping. You gotta
No,
stop her. You gotta
I'm being
stop
very direct.
Well,
I'm quoting
stop.
you.
I understand.
her. She's just galloping.
Fair enough. I want to give you some space, and MrGirl, Max.
Okay, I don't know what the fuck we're talking about.
Let me try. Let me try that.
Sure.
Wait.
If you're
wait
both
a
okay
second,
with
wait
this.
a second.
Okay.
No, wait,
Yeah, go for it.
No, I don't want you to try. I want to retort briefly.
So you do know what we're talking about.
No, just let
I
him
know what
retort.
I'm talking about. Okay, there's a few conversations I could see us having. Us collaborating to help men behave themselves is not one of them.
Okay.
It's we could have a meta argument about. It sounds like you're saying that's what I should be doing.
I'm saying I think it's the most important question. In my view, I
okay,
think you're
what-
asking
I
a
would
question
like
that's
to
not
just-
helpful.
I just want to talk. All right, for a while.
Sure.
Okay. It sounds like you're saying. It sounds like the first thing you said was that I focus too much on edge cases, and that really we should be focused on statistical big movements in the middle. What's going to give us the best outcome? What's going to give us the least harm? Yeah, there's situations where the advice isn't going to work for everybody, but basically we should be reducing rape. That's the goal.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm saying I don't think everybody should be doing that. So it doesn't make sense to me for you to take me. I'm like a bioluminescent little magical jellyfish that floats around by thermonuclear vents at the bottom of the ocean. And you're different from the other jellyfish, and you're trying to suck out my bioluminescence and make me into a fucking normal YouTuber. I don't want to do that. That's great. I think it's totally great. If you want to go on YouTube and find videos and streams about how to not rape people in the most mainstream, statistically viable way, then that's good. Good for you. I'm glad.
I think it's a lot
I'm glad
simpler,
somebody wants
Max.
to do that, but that ain't my job. That's not what I'm here to do. That's not what God put me on this fucking earth, or the devil put me on this earth to do. It's not what I'm here to do. So, I could see us having a meta argument where you're saying everybody should be doing that, Max, because I'm an outlier. So you're an outlier of content creators. So you're saying, Max, you should really be acting like the rest of us. Okay, then we can have that conversation about whether my content is irresponsible, or the things I've said about rape, the things I'm going to say about rape are irresponsible. We could do that.
I think something we talked about before this
But
is
I
Okay,
don't- but-
just real quick.
but-
Stop.
but-
Just
but-
real quick. All of you, stop. Brianna, you gotta let him finish. You gotta let him
okay, I
finish.
thought he
Get
was
through what he's
finished.
got.
Sounds like you're
I'm
done.
never finished.
I will stop him when I
Yes.
think it's best to do so.
Sounds
but
good.
you gotta let me
I-
do that, please.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Sounds good.
I'm gonna need a firm no from Wick before I stop, because that's how I am.
Good one.
We could do that, but what I don't accept is you smuggling in the premise that we're already doing that. And I don't know why you're reading these legal definitions either, because that's a legal definition of rape is not the same as a legal definition of consent. And the legal definition, by definition, is supposed to be that broad, statistically applicable definition that's going to reduce harm. That's obviously that's what the law should be. But I don't think we're debating what the law should be. I think we're debating how to talk about this. We're discussing how to talk. If it's debate,
Okay.
then you're telling me the way I talk about it is wrong.
Then
But I
at
don't.
this
I don't.
point-
I don't agree. I don't agree. Go ahead.
At this point, right? I think that you stating what you think we should be talking about. Well, let's talk about that, Brianna. What do you think? Do you think that that's an acceptable kind of switch or a turn
No,
on this? You don't.
I don't at all.
Okay.
In fact, yeah, Max.
Brianna.
So I think you've made some statements out there that I think most people would find pretty abhorrent about consent. I just
No,
want to
but not
read
all.
this right here.
But not all.
I'm going to ask you, let me finish what I'm saying. If we demand women convince themselves they must be 100% sure they want to have sex, all we're telling them to do is lie to themselves. So to be clear, before we started, I said, Max, please show me the videos you feel best represent your point of view, what you think has your best arguments in it. They weren't long videos. This one was 12 minutes long, and that was a quote in that video. It's my contention that some of the things you've said about consent are really, really deeply unhelpful. And what I want to do today on this debate is, and let me just get this thought out there. So when NASA is trying to send people to the moon, and they're trying to join two electrical wires together, they don't go to AutoZone and get a crimper and just cut it and do some electrical tape and pop it in the space shuttle. Yeah, the stakes are so high if something goes wrong that it's going to explode, right? So you've got to aim for a much, much, much higher standard. In my view, we don't need for men to lose on consent in order for women to be safe. And I think vice versa, right? The stakes are so high if there's a miscommunication. What I want to talk about today is how enthusiastic consent is the best possible standard for everyone.
Okay.
Because it's going to keep...
I understand. Sure. But we got to let both people in here. Do you think that's true, Mr. Girl? Do you think enthusiastic consent is the best way forward when it comes to these discussions?
For all of them? I mean, that's what I keep saying. It's like, is it the best thing to talk about all the time, no matter what's happening and no matter who you're talking to? Or is it the statistically broadly the best standard to apply generally? If I had to choose one standard to apply to every single situation, would I choose that? But the problem with that question is, and I think the kind of what I was trying to say before, and the goal of my content is to make content that is for the people who are missed by that, the people who, for whom the concept of enthusiastic consent does not fix the problem. It doesn't speak to them. It doesn't resonate with them.
Can you give me an example?
Or it does. Yeah. Well, the quote she said. What did I say? I said, when we try to tell women that they have to be 100% sure that they want to have sex, all we're telling women to do is lie to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I think that every time you agree to have sex, there's ambivalence. And every time you say no to sex, there's ambivalence. There is some part of you that wants to, there's some part of you that doesn't. And you have to take all of your mixed feelings and synthesize.
I feel like there are, sometimes I see this more, I think I commented this a bit when I was talking to him. I feel like he has, I don't want to say trauma because that's so cringe, but I think he actually does have a broken way of viewing a lot of like interpersonal relationships and sexual relationships. Like when he said before, like, oh, like all relationships are pain and like, oh, all sex is agony and all that. Like if I'm being ultra charitable, which I'm not anymore, but if I'm being ultra charitable and I'm trying to say like metaphorically, maybe there's a bit of spiritual pain and everything, like maybe, but I think he means it more literally. I think he just has a really unhealthy engagement with a lot of these topics that like there's a lot of bad feelings he has that float around here that he should address.
A yes or no binary answer for the person who is trying to have sex with you, or even for yourself. Even if you're just masturbating, you have to think like, well, it's late, I should be going to sleep, or I want to do this, or I don't know, I feel grossed out by what I'm looking at, but I still want to do it anyway. Whatever. Everybody has mixed feelings about every sex act they have, but in reality, you only get to do one thing. So there's many of you wanting to do many things inside of you emotionally, but your body is, in reality is only going to end up doing one thing, which means you're doing something that part of you doesn't want to do. And the way we talk about enthusiastic consent does not allow for ambivalence. If you detect ambivalence, or enough that you're not feeling super like enthusiastic, then I guess you're supposed to say no, or that is you saying no. But I've not heard in mainstream sex education any discussion of like, yeah, sometimes part of you doesn't want to do it and you do it anyway. Okay. Or sometimes you do want to do it, but you don't do it. And I think it's important to talk about that. So that's what I was talking about. I was saying that like if you try to sand off all the edges and tell every woman smiling ear to ear enthusiastic consent, that's a lot of sex isn't like that.
Got you. Okay. Well, I want to pause right here and turn to Brianna. So again, you heard him. What do you think? Do you have a response to that? When it comes to enthusiastic consent, there are
it's the exact
edges,
same thing.
Right?
Sure. So look, I'm going to posit to you. I fully agree. There are edge cases, right? Like there are people out there that are, they're into more exotic things, right? I'm fully agreeing with you about that.
Yeah. Just to interrupt real quick.
Talk about ambivalence.
Yeah. Sure. For example, if I may use an example, right? Someone asked me, "Hey, do you want to have sex?" And I'm not feeling it like 100%, but then they convince me, right? They're like, well, what, I'll make it work. We'll do some stuff that maybe I wouldn't normally do to kind of convince me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there are some people who would say that the act of trying to convince me is pressuring me, and that is not okay. How do we square this circle, right? How do we get enthusiastic consent to fit with the places where I think most people
we don't. That's what I'm trying to say is we don't.
But I want to see if Brianna
okay.
can. I understand that's your position, but I want to see Brianna's position here. So please go ahead, Brianna.
Excellent. So I really hear what you're saying there. This is a straight answer. Like again, I'm going to tell you on this call today. My limitation is I'm utterly pragmatically minded. So, in my view, you can roll those dice and try to push through that situation, right? When there is ambivalence there, and this is why I think we would say, if you're talking about women, you could end up in a situation where someone is traumatized for their entire life. I got to tell you, I know a lot of women, and I would estimate at least
This is like the one thing that I'm so curious about. I don't know if it's because of societal standards around sex or what, but like it must be. Hold on, I have to do a quick autism check on myself to see if this is just my autism. Like I've had bad sexual circumstances pop up where I didn't want to do anything, or I even kind of got pushed a little bit. I don't know if I'd say raped, But I was like, ugh, I didn't want to do this. But then it's like, that sucked. Like in the future, like I'll probably try to avoid this or not that. This is gonna sound really shitty, I guess. But like, let's say you go to a party. Let's say you get too drunk. Guy takes advantage of you and he you. You wake up the next morning. You don't really remember much. You're like, me, this guy last night. I don't even think I wanted to. I think you should be able to walk away from that and be like, ugh, like that sucked. That's annoying. I hate this creepy dude. Took advantage of me being drunk. That guy. I wonder sometimes if it's because of all the weird social stigma we have around sex, whether it's guys pressuring women to have low body counts, whether it's women getting shamed out of like sexuality early on, so they feel kind of like dirty about it, whether it's the physical act of entering another person. I don't know what it is, but I feel like it's a little bit too much trauma sometimes, I guess. I don't know. I feel like you should be able to have some negative sexual interactions, even like some rapey ones. I'd be like, ugh, that sucked. Like, but I don't know. That's like an impossible subject to breach. I'm wondering if the feelings are just fundamentally qualitatively different for women. Probably a little bit because of the position that the woman is in. But again, like, this is my, like, here's something that's hard to square in my mind, okay? I think that most people would say that almost every form of rape, whether it's stealthing or whatever, almost all of that rape is worse than getting the shit beat out of you. Like getting jumped in a parking lot and having like 3 people beat the shit out of you. Maybe you like break your nose. Everybody would say like is worse. I think like 99 people say the is worse. But like, is it? Really? Is it actually? And then how many people, and also I could be wrong, maybe I don't run in the right circles for people to get beat up. I've never heard of people talk about trauma from getting beaten up. Even if they get beat up like pretty bad. And maybe they have that and they don't talk about it, but I've never heard someone like, oh, like I was in a bar and then 3 guys walked in and all I could think about was like, oh my God, when I got beaten up, I remember when 3 guys walked into the bar. Or like, oh, I was walking outside and I heard like a noise and I thought it was guys running to beat me up. Like, I feel like I don't hear about that type of like trauma. Whereas for the rape thing, like a woman will get stealthed once and be like, I can't talk to men ever again. It's too much. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. But there's so much that plays into it from maybe men do have those experiences and they just don't talk about it. Maybe, what?
Hey.
Hi, what's up?
I had to run upstairs and just like clarify. I want to give you an example and then I'll get off the call.
Go for it.
Okay. So like I was assaulted at a party. We'll put that aside. So I understand that experience. But I've also been slapped unconsensually.
Wait. Your thing just cut out. You've also been what unconsensually?
Slapped by a grown man.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, when Abba was on stream, I remember, yeah. I'm just kidding. Go ahead. I shouldn't do that.
Different situation.
Yeah.
And I've also had brothers who got into fights growing up. And for our family, we openly talk about like sexual assault. There's a lot of predatory behavior coming from the Middle East. And one thing that is clear is that sexual offenses are more offensive, are very hard to cope with. They're hard to justify. If I got in a fight and I lost, well, I tried my best. But if I'm raped or if I'm sexually assaulted, 1, people don't believe you. 2, you don't even believe it. And 3, it's not very cool. It's kind of badass if you got in a fight and you kind of tried your best and lost. It's kind of badass if you win the fight. But it's never badass to sort of survive your rape. It's just kind of lame. You got raped. You're an idiot. And it feels awful.
I agree with... I think I agree very, very, very broadly with what you're saying. But I think a lot of what you're saying ties back into what I was feeling earlier. So like that feeling of like, oh, like you're an idiot, blah, blah, blah. That ties into like the like kind of the broad like social expectation around it. Like, is it not possible to be like, I was stupid, that was dumb, I'm not going to do it again, rather than like you're gaslighting yourself and like the rest of your male-female interactions for the rest of your life? Like,
yeah, obviously, like the healthy version of this is to realize it's not every man or every woman or every gender whoever assaulted you. But the problem is sort of like it is that horrendous. Like it is that confusing to get assaulted. Like that's why it is so much worse than getting beat up. I'd rather have all my fingers and toes cut off than raped again. Absolutely.
I feel like I guess
doubt.
I have like the exact opposite. I'd rather have like a rape sexual experience than like even have like my nose broken in a parking lot. But
Yeah,
it might
I
be
think-
like different types of.
I will tell you, like being a vagina holder myself, like for myself, it is really strange to have something inside of you that you didn't want there. Like even hospitals are places that trigger me now because I'm just like, get off me. Like I don't trust. Like I've worked.
I understand what you're saying, but like I feel the same way about like somebody like being in my face. Like it's pretty rare that that happens. But like I've been around some homeless people before. Like having people. I haven't gotten like beaten up before, but I imagine like having like a fist up my fucking nose would probably not be something I want in my body either. Like
Yeah, I think it depends. Like I come from a culture where like fighting is tough, so like you learn to fight. But
fighting is
getting
not always,
raped-
but like I mean, like if you get like jumped and like being up by 3 or 4 guys, like you're never winning that. And I don't think you ever you're never coming
yeah.
away looking good either. Like I don't think anybody brags like, oh yeah, like 3 guys jumped me and it was so cool. I got the shit kicked out of me.
Great example. I'll give you a life example. So this isn't everyone's family, and my family's pretty dope, but they're not perfect. They're pretty immigrant in a lot of ways. But like my brother was jumped by like 3 guys he cut off on the freeway. They followed him to a gas station and they jumped him. And we all kind of laughed at him. I was like, well, you are an aggressive cutter offer. And though that was pussy of them to all jump you, you gotta like get ready for that. Because in Cali, people be violent. That's just how it rolls in some places, okay? My family was really sympathetic to him. They're like, oh my gosh, are you okay? You look so fucked up. We love you. When they found out about my assault, like, they asked me what I did wrong. In the same way, but it's not the same thing. And so it's like, yeah, the homie cut someone off on traffic, so they beat him up. That's stupid. But he walked away from that thinking, I was dumb. I got raped, and when I was asked what I did wrong, it's like so much more is attached to that shame than just getting in a fight you lost. So it's like, it's kind of, I don't know how to explain. It's kind of like the difference between being a professional boxer and being a porn actress. One has a respectability in culture.
I don't disagree with what you're saying right now, but I think it circles back to what I said before, where I wonder how much the social stigma is like playing into the reactions that people have. That like, if somebody got raped and then somebody talked about it and people were pretty much immediately like, oh yeah, that sucks. Like that guy's like an asshole and that was a shitty experience. Rather than like telling people like, did you deserve it? Did it, like all of that shit.
Yeah.
I wonder if the processing would be just way different on it.
You know, I don't know. I just know that it feels so icky. Like it feels it just feels like the worst thing ever compared to all the times I've been roughed up or I've fought people. Like that felt way better. Not that I fought a lot of people or nothing. I'm not street fighting over here. Like everybody chill. But like anytime I've lost a fight, I felt okay. The one time I got assaulted, it fucked me up for like until today. Like I still work on my PTSD all the time. So I don't know the differences, except I feel like vomiting every time I think about it. But I don't feel like vomiting every time I think about fights I lost. I just think like, I'll be best. I'll be stronger. Maybe that's why. Maybe when I get beat up, I know I could just get stronger and fight back. But how do I fight back against a rape? Like how do
but I mean like way easier. What do you mean? Like
what do you mean?
How do you fight back against one rapist versus getting jumped by 2 or 3 people? The rape thing is a million times easier to fight back against. What do you mean?
No, the cope is I got beat up this time, but I can get stronger for next time. What's the I can be stronger other than being diligent the next
literally
time for
anything.
rape?
Carry a knife, have an anti-rape condom. I mean, there's like a million things you could do. I feel like it'd be way easier going through life to I'm going to LA and there's like a bunch of weird shit with rappers. I'm not worried about one guy raping me. I'm worried about 3 people jumping me. I feel like there's so much more I could do to mitigate a bad sexual experience than like people attacking me in public.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's like I'm not sure what it is, but men, women, no matter who I've met, no matter what gender, sex is extremely shameful. I think because a lot of us freeze when it happens, so we don't have that badass story of I fought the motherfucker off and I lost. I think a lot of us have a really shameful association with like letting it happen, which is not, it's like more honest because it's really scary to try to fight back.
Sure, I agree with...
I don't know why.
I agree with what you're saying
like,
in terms of the shameful thing, but even what you're saying, they're like, it's scary to fight back when a person is raping you, but it's not scary to fight back when 3 people are jumping you.
I don't know how to explain it. I don't know if it's the nudity or the violation. I don't know what it is, but it's so much scary. My body just like, I want to vomit right now. Like when I'm in a fight, I'm pumped. I'm like anime pumped. when I'm like thinking about, oh my God, I'm gonna get assaulted, my brain is like, I don't know what to do, which is so interesting. I took self-defense classes after, I did therapy after, like I tried to really find ways to prepare for God forbid the next time. But like, yeah, there's something really psychologically like almost confusing to explain. So I can't just walk up and go, oh, fuck, I guess that happened. Now, I do think there are situations where you're at parties and you're drunk and, ooh, you had sex with somebody that you know is going to be drama the next day. Yeah, that sucks, but like you'll deal with the drama and the fallout tomorrow. That's not rape, right? But if somebody wakes up at a party and doesn't even realize they had sex and they're bleeding out of their vagina, like stories that have happened to people around me, and they're like, what the fuck just happened? And everyone's like, oh, you were at a party and you had sex. Aren't you happy? And it's like, no, I didn't intend to have sex tonight. So no, now I'm like mortified and scared. Like these are things that have happened to people that I know. And like they have been, like even the men were like, yeah, I thought you wanted to have sex. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah,
Like,
I agree.
like,
I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying, but every single thing you're telling me is reinforcing my idea that a lot of this like trauma is socially enforced. Like, didn't you want that to happen?
Yeah.
Like the guy's like, I thought you wanted this. Like if there was, because I'm trying to like, it's hard because it's so different, but like I'm trying to apply if there was the same set of like, if there was the same set of social boundaries around getting beaten up, I think that would be a really mindfucky experience. If you went to an area, two people jumped you and beat the shit out of you, and then you walked into a party and people were like, oh, like, what's up? And you're like, I got jumped, like, it was fucking horrible. Like, oh, well, like, did you tell the guys you wanted to fight? Like, it looked like you guys were having a lot of fun outside. Like, I thought you enjoyed it. Like, you weren't even, like, hitting them that hard. It seemed like you were having fun. It's like, I think if you heard that around getting jumped, I feel like your mind would get a little bit fucked up. You'd be like, hold on, what the fuck? No.
Yeah.
So that's right. It goes back to that point I said where I wonder if it's like, if it's the social reinforcement of all the weird stuff around sex that makes the sexual assault stuff so much more traumatic in our minds, not like the event itself. But also maybe it is an event itself. It's hard to know. I'm truly just asking. I don't know. I think it's a really hard thing to sort through. But it's just like in my mind, like the thing I was saying before is that like, I think if 3 people jumped somebody and like broke like a nose and like, you know, an arm or like a hairline fracture or some shit, and then another person got stealthed, I think that like 80% of people polled would be like, yeah, the person that got stealth, that like rape was worse than the guy that got jumped by like 6 people. I think people would genuinely say that. And in my mind, I can't square that in my mind. There's like no shot. Or like some people, if you want to go more extreme, I think over 40% of people would say that like getting raped is worse than getting murdered. Like I think people actually would say that. And
I would rather die for sure.
Yeah, that's wild to me. And I have to wonder like what's happening. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think taking from the great philosopher Guts, even Guts being a great soldier in Berserk, he's willing to go into fight after fight after fight, fuck his limbs, fuck his heart, fuck his body. But like his rape and his assault like impacted him most of all, right? It's like for some reason sex and rape like that, not just sex, but rape, like not being able to be in the moment. Like a fight is kind of like you're in the moment, whether you've planned for it or not. I don't know how to be in the moment when you're being raped. Like I think that is a struggle for me to even process. And I'm not trying to trigger myself here on stream here, but like it is hard to imagine, like if I put myself back there, I just wasn't prepared. Now, to be fair, I was pretty suicidal at that point. I was hoping they would just kill me and get it over with because I was hoping I would die. But like in most circumstances, I don't know that we're thinking about surviving a fight. I think we're thinking like this is the end, maybe. Even like children I know who have been molested, a lot of them just like don't understand it. And I you know, again, this is only my perspective. I could be just speaking from my perspective in any way, but I just find it to be, it's like pretty bad. And as a sexually like promiscuous person or a person who's had like, I've had plenty of sex. Like I know that every partner I've ever chosen has been wonderful, even if they've been assholes. But I didn't choose one of those moments. And I really would have liked to have chosen it, so I could have enjoyed it and been in the moment. But in that moment, it wasn't. It felt, I don't know what it is. That's kind of interesting. I never thought about why people freeze versus why don't we fight back? Because in the fantasy, you fight back. Like, I was raised to fight back. I was raised to tell men, fuck off. And I didn't. And so, like, maybe there's a lot of shame in that. Maybe that is the social stigma of, like, you were taught to fight back.
In the mammal world, isn't like almost all sex rape? That just seems like how they do things.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the thing is like, why did the people even they're ashamed to even talk about it? Like the people in my life at least are slightly like they want to talk about violence and boxing and Mike Tyson. They're open to like sports or violence, but the moment it's like sexual assault, they're like, oh, unless it's a gay person doing it to like a kid, they're like, ugh. Like it's like a hesitation of like, what does this mean? Because you're right, rape is like a hard thing to like pinpoint and define, and so a lot of it is like, well, what did you do? So I guess there's almost like with a fight, maybe it's clear you got in a fight because you have a bruise on your face, but with rape, it's like internal damage, a lot of it, especially if you don't fight back. So maybe it's a part of all of that. I don't know. I guess like you said that and my brain was like, pourquoi? Like I need to just like speak from my own experience that there is a distinct difference. There really is.
Yeah, I mean, I know there is.
You know
I'm just
there is,
curious
yeah.
where it comes
Why?
from. Yeah.
I'll meditate on it and get back to you, but you're right. I don't quite
where's I need that Aella chick to do a survey. This would be a question. Let's say you take somebody who is highly sexually promiscuous, super confident, doesn't give a goes on Fresh and Fit, gives their body count of 162, doesn't give a fuck about anything. Let's say that person gets raped. Then you take another person who grows up their whole life, Catholic, no bodies, won't have sex until marriage. Everyone around her tells her she doesn't even masturbate because she's so like ashamed of her own like fucking sexuality. And then she gets raped. If we run both these women through the same rape scenario, and then we look at the reactions afterwards, like, do we expect the reactions to be pretty similar, or would they be completely different? That would be the question I would have, I guess.
I would kind of assume they'd be similar. Why would they be different?
Because the views around it are so different.
Around sex? I don't think rape is about sex. It's about power. But it really isn't about sex, because like nobody's thinking about sexual pleasure. They're thinking about getting something done. Like, it's, at least in my experience, my personal experience, like sex is awesome, but my rape didn't even feel like sex. It felt like somebody was going into my brain and trying to like play with my like nerves. Like it didn't even remind me of sex. Like I had already had sex by that point. It didn't even remind me of sex. It felt like they were in my head. Like they weren't even in my body. They were in my like my nervous system. Like they were in my literal, I don't know how to explain it. So maybe it's that. Maybe it's the idea of like it doesn't even feel like sex. And that's why it's so disturbing. At least a fight is a fight. But like a rape doesn't feel like it should feel. Like in your head, you're like, maybe if I have to choose between having sex or being raped and getting my fingers cut off, I choose rape because it's like having sex, but it's not like having sex.
Well, yeah, of course it's not, sure.
So like maybe that's the issue, is like, yes, what's the difference between sex and consensual sex and rape? Well, the consent part, but that's not the psychological difference, you're right, is quite intense. Maybe I can reach out to some like sexperts or like people who actually like work with sexually abused people, and we can talk about why those things are so different. But from my own personal experience, even talking to you, I'm realizing like, oh yeah, there's like it's not even like sex.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah. I know you say of course, but like truly, like you've given me something to consider in terms of how to
when I say of course, I mean like rape is not bad sex. That's what I say, of course, right?
Exactly.
Like getting jumped is way different than your worst MMA fight, right? You're in the ring, like that's what it is. Getting jumped is different than that, right? The same way that rape is not really bad sex.
Maybe it's the reasoning why too. I will say, like my rape was really impersonal. I'm not even. I'm pretty sure I didn't even know those people. I used to go to a lot of house parties with lots of drugs back in the day. Not that I did them. I was only drinking, but like still. And so I didn't know everyone who came in and out of those places. But I will say, like, it felt impersonal. And maybe that's what's offensive. Like, my brother fucked somebody over in traffic. They attacked him. It felt kind of fair in some ways, but not fair. Like, super pussy, 3 against 1. But something about it was like, well, I mean, you know, like, you have Agnes. There was a context to which I was like, okay, they're pussies, but fine. The rape feels impersonal, but then even when they target you, it's like, why? Like, why? What do they have against you? Isn't it just a power move then? It's like, I'm going to do something to you that fucks with you for the rest of your life. That gives you, like, night terrors and fucking insomnia and, like, doesn't let you be a person again, and maybe even threatens your, like, livelihood or being able to be romantic in the future with somebody else.
Yeah, I know. You're talking a lot about the effects. I know all of the effects. I
Yeah.
understand. My only question is the why, because I don't think it should. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm gonna be real with you. I think like this would be really great to have a bunch of like rape victims on a panel to probably talk about this, so we could talk about our differences. But I'm not sure. I don't know if it doesn't make sense. Like, I don't know your sexual history. I don't want to ask you on stream, like, you know,
Sure.
But I don't know what the difference could be like for a brain that hasn't experienced it versus a brain who has. And again, I'm not insinuating that I know your sexual past, but I'm trying to figure out if that's something to consider. If that's like. I can't tell you. I'm sorry. I'm actually not very helpful in this call, am I? Yeah. I don't know. It's different. And because of that difference, it's enough for me to hate the idea of like, oh, I could just walk it off. Like, yeah, I think you can walk off a lot in life. I think I could walk off the death of a child and the death of a spouse and a lot of things, because life happens and people fucking die. Could I walk off the rape and molestation of my own child? Okay. I'm about to kill somebody. You know what I'm saying? Like, if my kid died from cancer, I'd be like, yeah, that's life. If my kid got fucking raped and killed, I would go to prison hunting that bitch down. Because it's different now. You went for some, but you know what's so funny is we only imagine that when it's children. Because when our adult children get raped, a lot of people don't give a fuck.
Really?
Because we should have been able to do something about it. We should have been able to fight back. We should have been able to. I think there's something, at least in my area and my culture and my background, yeah, like you get blamed. You absolutely are asked, what did you do? Where were you? Why did you do that?
Oh,
Even
yeah,
friends
that's got to
of
be like
mine
a
will say
parent
things-
background. I feel like if somebody.
Well, even friends, well, I think it's like certain.
No,
types
I
of
understand. I'm just saying
people.
it's different because I think if somebody hurt me today, for all of our differences, I think my mom and dad would want to kill that person. I'm thinking for my child's 11, but if he was 20, I can't imagine being like, oh, somebody like beat the shit out of my son, but he's like 20 years old, so like, you know, he should have done something. I feel like I would still be equally incensed, but I think my parents would too. But that might be like a different cultural thing, I guess.
Yeah, I think it might be absolutely right because, like, yeah, in my background, you're very much like, yeah, it's very much like shit happens. Either fucking like I don't know, like it's too confusing to explain on stream, but yeah, it is a lot, and that's probably most of what goes into it. But it's not just like I think the action itself isolated is a thing because I remember thinking like if I was the last person on earth with like even my best friend, like why would we have sex? It doesn't even make sense to my brain. But for some people, they're like, why wouldn't you have sex? I'm like, but why would we? Like, why would things change just because we're the last people on earth? Like, I just don't get that kind of scenario. So maybe I'm like very protective of my body and how people utilize it or other people touch it because I'm like, well, why? Like, I don't have that desire. Why do you have the desire? So maybe it's like a feeling of like, well, are you saying if for the last people on earth, you're going to rape me? Because like, why wouldn't you? Like, it's just confusing, I suppose. But maybe that's it. It feels so much more worse than being in a fight. I don't know why. I want to be in a fight more. I really actually like the idea of fighting people because I'm like, that's like, let's go, bitch. I feel strong and capable. But yeah, like, let's have you try to rape me. That doesn't sound like fun. That's not in Naruto. I've never seen that in a Berserk. I've never seen that in JJK.
Well, there are some hentais where if the girl loses the fight, the tentacles come out. So I'm just saying.
Okay, I do love me some hentai though. I mean, in that scenario, negotiated and pre-negotiating with enthusiastic consent, maybe. You know, yeah. I don't know. You're right. I'll ask some people because that is a curious subject matter. But I'm telling you right now, like it is fucking awful. It's bullshit. But it is life. Like rape is a part of life, but it fucking sucks. I'd rather fight starvation and fucking battling people for scraps of food.
Yeah, I think
But that's
this is where my brain is right now, I guess, because I haven't thought about this super deeply. The two things that I'm thinking about are, one is it ties back to that deep fake question, kind of, and the difference between how men and women view sex is that, like, I wonder if rape is really bad because it feels like somebody is getting, like, something out of you that you don't want to give them. In terms of like some guy is basically using me for their pleasure, and I like don't want that to happen, and they're like getting something out of that. So obviously it doesn't feel like sex for you. It's like a totally, or that might feel like a fundamentally different type of thing if someone's getting something out of you don't want them to. And then the second thing is the that there is like a perceived, because you keep bringing this up too, there's a perceived lack of agency during a sexual assault that doesn't seem to necessarily be the case in a physical assault.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I don't mind if we have a symbiotic relationship, we're making a trade, I work a job I hate, but who cares, you give me money. Like in a rape, like what do I get out of this except PTSD? Like, do I get something better? What do I get? If you're some women, maybe you get a child and that's good, or maybe you're some women, you get a child and that's bad. But like, what am I getting out of this? Maybe it's that. Maybe it's like when you go to war and you fight an enemy, you get like the pride of the country. Or if you're doing certain things, there's something to be proud of. And even surviving your rape doesn't matter because, well, it doesn't look like Rambo. You just fucking go home and you take a shower and you fucking
yeah, but I mean,
self-harm.
surviving getting jumped doesn't look like. I think you're glorifying. Or I don't know if this is a cultural thing or what. I think you're glorifying the fighting thing way too much. I'm not talking about like you're outside of a bar and you get into a glorious 1v1 combat and you like barely lose, but the other guy goes home like totally. It seems like that's your comparison. I'm saying that like you're outside a bar and like some dude like hits you in the back of the head with a bottle and you fall to the ground and like three guys like beat the shit out of you and steal your wallet. That's what I'm talking about. That's the equivalent I'm talking about. Not like you getting glorious
sorry.
1v1 combat. Yeah.
I was misunderstanding. I thought it was like, we're gonna fight now, even if it's unfair. But a bottle, a gun, a knife, like escalating it to like possible murder is not just a fight. That's like, okay, now we're
Well,
like.
I guess
playing
that's
for
when I
keeps.
say getting jumped. That's what I mean. Getting jumped isn't like
Okay.
I'm choosing to fight you and we're gonna have like a fun or even an intense one-on-one. I think that's different.
Yeah. I mean, people do get okay. Yeah, I was thinking about my brother's scenario where he got jumped, but it was like, "Hey, we're coming for you because you fucked with us on the road," and so it became like a yes, they jumped him, but he also like he tried to fight back. He got a couple hits in, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, there is like a little bit of romanticization with fighting because it's so not personal, but it's also like a matter of strength, and I value strength. But with the sex stuff, yeah, I don't know why. Like I'm like, yeah, I'd rather fight a guy than try. Like, but that's the thing is like you fight him. Maybe I would be able to fight him next time. That's the goal, or her next time. Like the goal is to be able to defend myself the next time, right? So maybe that's it too. Maybe I've prepared myself for getting jumped, which has never happened. But I did prepare myself not to get raped, but not well enough apparently.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, listen. Thanks
Yeah.
for your feedback, buddy.
Yeah. All right. Have a great day.
Yep.
Enjoy your streams.
Be careful.
Thanks.
Bye. Hold on. I'm just soliciting a few opinions. Things to think about. Hello.
Hello, poop. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I don't know what you just said before. Jesus, your mic has gotten worse. Impressive.
Yeah, I know. Somebody got me a new mic, but I didn't have time to set it up because you're like, you want to do a call in 2 minutes? And I'm like, oh, God.
Yeah, because you said Destiny minutes, so you better believe it was 2 minutes to 120 seconds. Okay. Sorry, just a quick question. Okay, I'm just curious. Okay, let's say you've got somebody who is. Sorry, I'm just listening to my echo.
Sorry, I fixed that.
Okay. Okay. Sorry. Quick. Oh, here. I don't know if you need this. Okay. All right. You have a say you take a woman, okay, traditional conservative religious woman, shamed of masturbating, et cetera, her entire life, okay. Then on the flip side, say you take a highly promiscuous woman, doesn't care, open about her body count, fucks all time, doesn't give a fuck, super open sexually or not. If you run both of these women through the same rape scenario, do you think that their like traumatic response is going to be the same? Do you think it's going to be mostly the same, or do you think it's going to be like significantly different? And why?
I think it depends significantly on the type of rape scenario. Like my guess is that somebody who's very promiscuous is probably in liberal culture, which has like very specific views on what counts as rape. Like somebody's very conservative, like if the husband forces themselves on you, but it's your duty as a wife. Like this is very different. So it depends a lot.
Oh, so you're taking like the exact opposite answer, where you're saying that like perhaps the conservative woman could be more tolerable of some forms of rape because it's expected.
Yeah, I mean, like the trauma around rape, like in a great deal, is due to like the expectation that you have around how much it's bad. And conservative and liberal women come from very different types of cultures around sex.
So what you just said there is the point of contention, I guess, that everybody is talking around. I don't know if this is like a research question or there's like actual like data on this, but I guess the thing that I'm trying to point to that I'm curious about is how much is our trauma in relation to sexual assault? How much is that informed by societal expectations? That's kind of what I'm curious about.
And probably significant. Like, did you see the study? They asked people. I forget exactly. The phrasing probably is important, so maybe you shouldn't trust me until you look at it yourself. But they asked people of different generations or across time, like and they gave specific instances of like men doing things in the street, like flirting at someone, like winking at you, like calling a compliment. And they had people rate to like what degree this was desired versus bad, or like sexual assault versus not. And it was like very much decreased around time. Like older women are like, this stuff is totally fine, and this has always been fine, and the younger women are like, this is unacceptable. So I mean, this is like a pointer. I'm not sure if it's exactly.
Yeah.
But I would strongly like you can look at animals. I don't know if animals develop trauma responses, but like some species have lots of sexual coercion, and that seems to be just normally integrated into their animal society.
Yeah, that was the example I get because there's a lot of like even mammals and shit that just rape each other, and it seems like that's just like part of their existence.
It's mostly sexual coercion. Rape itself is actually quite rare in the animal kingdom. Like only orangutans rape, and like.
What do you mean by sexual coercion? What does that mean?
Like there's an umbrella of sexual coercion, which is like various like sexual coercion, and this can be like I'm going to beat you all the time, and so when I finally try to have sex with you, you don't resist because you're afraid of being beaten. Like, does it count as rape because the person's not the animal's not resisting, or like you can like intimidate people, like run at them and shake a branch. This is what chimpanzees do, and the women are like, oh, roll over. Like it's very rare to see like an animal like physically like fighting off.
Yeah, I guess I was including all of those things in like the rape, but I know what you mean. It's not like by the books rape. It's like human societal rape or whatever. Like I think I watched on fuck, what was it? I don't remember if it was an animal or an insect, but like on Reddit, it was something where I think it was either insect or an animal shows like a branch or something cool, and then the female looks at it and they're captivated, and then while that happens, the animal runs around to the back and like really quickly like fucks the woman and then like walks away. I don't remember. Maybe somebody I swear to God, this was on like Reddit like 2 days ago. And I saw this.
Which animal it was?
I don't remember. Somebody could fucking somebody said spiders. It wasn't spiders. I don't remember what it was. Fuck me. But
I like the water gliders insects. Do you know how they do it?
people are saying owls. No, I don't know. Tell me.
I forget exactly. I think it's like a species of water glider. It's an insect, and they hover on the surface of the water. And so what the male does is he like climbs on the female, and she evolved protection or something, so you can't exactly rape her. But like what he does is he starts tapping on the water to attract predators, and the only way the female can get him to shut up is by allowing him to have sex with her.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Nice.
I think that fact is so much cooler than the tone you just gave me.
Well, I'm thinking about fucking rape in society, and you're telling me a cool fact about insects, okay? Fucking on top of the water, okay? That was a coolish fact, okay? But it's like, that's not where my brain is right now, all right? I'm not in an appreciate interesting facts mode, okay?
Okay.
But thank you.
Maybe there's some effort we can get you there.
Okay. Well,
because rape in the animal kingdom is one of the most fascinating topics ever.
Sure. Yeah, I agree because it because of the, I'm sorry, fuck my brain. Because of the parallels that we draw to like human interaction, right? Because it's so much different, and but in some ways so much the same, right? Yeah.
Are you thinking about something else?
No, I'm thinking about this. This is a really challenging conversation, and a lot of people have very, very, very strong opinions about it. And I'm just trying to figure out like why. The thing that started this off, the question, this is like an idea that I proposed that I think is true. I feel like if you were to poll people on like what's worse, and you take like some of the worst forms of like getting jumped, and then you compare that to some of the least bad forms of like getting raped, I feel like over 50% of the population would say like the rape is worse. That like if you compare a guy getting jumped by like 3 dudes and his nose busted, and you compare that to like another woman like getting stealthed, I think people would say like, oh, like over half the people are like, yeah, getting stealthed is probably worse than that because it's like kind of rape.
Yeah.
And I'm curious where that feeling comes from. Or like a lot of people say things like getting raped is worse than getting murdered.
Yeah, and in the same way that like getting tortured is worse than getting murdered. Like you like are having an experience as opposed to not having an experience. But similarly, like in my survey, my King survey, I ask about a whole bunch of really fucked up things. I'm like, are you aroused by the thought of murder? Are you aroused by the thought of like, of wound fucking or whatever? But when it comes to rape, you have to say, are you aroused by the thought of rape play? Like that's the one term where you can't just say the thing. You have to like specify that it's a fantasy in the thing because it's so taboo.
And you don't say murder play, you just say murder?
Yeah, it's snuff.
Interesting.
Because people don't freak out about that. But if you're like, I'm like aroused by rape, everybody's like, oh my God, you're a terrible person.
Oh yeah, or like one of the one of the memes that I see go around Twitter is that like you can walk around saying shit like, we need to kill all Nazis. I would murder a Nazi. If I ever saw a Nazi, I'd fucking murder one. But if you say some shit like, man, if I see a Nazi, I'm gonna rape them, everybody looks at you like it's really weird. And it's like it's an interesting like way that we engage with topics. Okay. Trying to think of. Yeah, do you have anything else you want to add? Throw your hat into the ring on this topic?
I mean, I've been like kind of like 70% raped before and it was fine. Because I think it's partially because I was very careful not to allow people to tell me that it was bad. I've also been molested as a kid and it was fine. I also think because I was very careful. Like when I grew up, I was like, maybe I shouldn't believe it when people tell me that it's really bad. But there were some moments where I was like, maybe I should fall into the narrative where I'm like really traumatized by this. Those are the only things I have left to say.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so curious about. I wonder what the difference is between like repression versus like this just didn't affect me much. That's like because I'm relatively unemotional. I have to think about a lot of things in my life like that. Like, oh, am I like repressing a ton of stuff and I'm not aware of it, or is it actually just not that big a deal to me? It doesn't matter. And then I wonder.
You probably repress.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Like repression probably like occurs when you feel like you need to in order to achieve a goal. Like if you repress a thing about yourself, maybe it's like if I believe this thing, then I'm going to feel a great deal of shame and guilt. Or if I believe this thing, then the tribe is going to excommunicate me. So like repression is like for a purpose. And so like what is the purpose? Like if you're sexually assaulted and you're like, this wasn't that bad.
Yeah, I agree that
trying to preserve.
I agree repression can be for a purpose. My question isn't is it for a purpose? My question is it a conscious like cognitive activity or is it something that just happens that you don't really think about? Like, for instance, like a husband coming home and beating the shit out of you because he gets drunk, right? You might think like, well, normally he's a really nice guy, and it's just when he drinks he's like that, and sometimes he's really nice. Like, I don't know if that's like a intellectual cognitive process where you're thinking like, if I really recognize my husband for what he is, that's going to be really difficult, so I'm going to make excuses for him. I don't think that's the thought process. I think the thought process is just like you're grabbing for something nice that like makes you feel happy, and you're trying to like rationalize like why he's being a piece of shit, and this answer like makes you feel better than acknowledging that he's like a horrible person, right? So like the former I would consider like a very intellectualized process, and the latter is just like a maladaptive, automatic, this is just what your brain does without you thinking about it, if that makes sense.
I don't understand why you're making the distinction. I think I missed the point.
Oh.
Like, why is this important?
Why is it important? Because of what you just said right before because about repression, right? Is repression because if repression is a cognitive process, then it should be really easy to understand when you're repressing something, right? Like if I'm like in a room and I don't say something like, fuck, I know if I say something, everybody's gonna bully me, I'm not gonna do this. If I reflect on that later, I'd be like, okay, I know why I didn't say anything, because I was worried about getting bullied. But like, let's say that you go in a room and you just don't say anything, you're quiet and shy and anxious around certain people that are really dominant, and you don't know why. Later on, when you're asked to reflect on that, it might be hard for you to figure out, like, I don't know why I don't talk, I don't know why I don't say anything. I guess maybe I'm just like a loser. Like, you don't know as much because the repression. That's why I'm curious, does it happen consciously or unconsciously? Because the way that you would address it would be way different, or the way you even identify it would be way different.
So you're like, maybe that like I was doing some sort of like conscious, possibly conscious repression as opposed to subconscious?
Or are you doing subconscious repression, you just don't realize it?
Because you're like trying to reason yourself out of feeling bad?
Because you're like, if repression is an emotional or uncognitive process, it's possible, I don't know if this is how it works or not, but I'm saying maybe it's possible you've engaged in a great deal of repression and you're not aware of it. And you might have like a whole bunch of like maladaptive behaviors, and you don't even see it. You think they're just like normal things. Like maybe a person is like, oh yeah, I don't talk to or trust anybody, because I think that people are just largely like not to ever be trusted. And I think that like being completely on your own with no friends is like really good. Like if 99% of people said that, I think people are like, bro, you sound like maladaptive as hell. Like who hurt you? That would be like the thing. And if the person doesn't realize, they're like, oh no, I think it's just like a good way to live life. You might be like, okay, maybe you should like introspect a little bit. But if like the repression part is not cognitive and they just like do it, then maybe that's just the way they walk through life, you know?
You're like, how do you know
That's my question. I don't know.
if it's repression or not?
If it's like if repression is like a conscious thing or not, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, like my guess is like you probably would see behaviors that are not congruent with what you're saying. Like if I'm really repressing the fact that like say my husband comes home, beats me, and I'm not okay with that, but I'm like, actually I'm fine, he's not normally like this. But then like he comes home one night and I'm like, like totally freak out, like my body enters a panic attack, like then that sort of response is like not congruent with the thing that you're trying to, the narrative you're feeding yourself. And so that's what would be my guess.
And that would be, that's because that's usually what I would say, is that like I think you look for obvious like maladaptive patterns. Like if you meet a new person and they're trying to open up to you and you shut down every single conversation like that and you run away, like there's no good logical reason to do that. You're probably engaging in like behaviors that are not like, these aren't healthy ways to communicate with people or something like that, right?
Okay, so you're saying maybe people get raped and then they're like, that was fine, it didn't affect me, but then like they are actually exhibiting behaviors that like you would expect to see from someone for whom the rape affected them?
Maybe, or the contrapositive of that, where somebody gets raped and they're socially told that they have to have a feeling for it, and they like create those feelings out of nothing, perhaps. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Even that statement is really extreme, because people are just like, oh, you think rape is fake and blah blah blah. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I don't know. I don't know the extent to it. Like how much does the social? Yeah.
I told you about like, the whole, I was really abused in childhood and stuff, right? And then like I grew up and I got into the world and I was like, this is fine. Like I wasn't traumatized by it. It sucked, but I wasn't traumatized by it. And then people were like, oh my God, I'm so sorry for you. And like it was only after I encountered people reacting to me like that I got traumatized. Then I had like a whole like fucked up thing going on in my body. And like, when I look at that in hindsight, to me, clearly this is society traumatizing me. This wasn't my dad traumatizing me, even though like I had like other fucked up shit from that. But like then there's like a distinction between like the concrete like behaviors that I had adopted, like fear, like from my upbringing, versus like the narrative processing about the upbringing, which like caused a strong trauma response. And the trauma response is different from like the direct learned response, and that feels very separate to me. And so to me, this makes me, at least this experience for myself makes me think that like it's very learned.
Wait, can you expand on that? When you say the trauma response is way different than like the learned response, what do you mean by that?
Like let's say you have to go to the hospital and you've had a couple bad hospital experiences. And so the doctor wants to, I don't know, like take your blood or put you in a really uncomfortable position, and you have like a fear response in your body, like you're stressed, you're upset, you're angry, maybe you have like dreams about it later. But you tell people this, and nobody's going to be like, going to treat you like you're having a trauma response. They're going to treat you like you're having like a normal conditioned response, like based on experiences that you've had. Whereas if you like move to a culture where people are like, oh my fucking God, I can't believe you have doctors like that. I can't believe you would put up with such an experience. You might develop a secondary narrative about that. And so there's sort of like this like default like systemic physical response that you have as a direct response to learned behavior. Like, I don't want to go in that alley. Somebody jumped me in that alley last time. That doesn't feel like a trauma response to me. It feels like a natural learned behavior response. But if everybody's like, oh my God, like if you're really upset, like if this was something that should not be, if there's some like deep, this is why I brought up the medical example, because in medical examples we have this concept that it should be, like, it is good that you went to the doctor. This has a meaningful place in our society and our narrative. Like, nothing is violated by you going to the doctor and having an uncomfortable experience. Whereas if you get raped, it's a huge violation. And so it's like the sensation of that violation, the like what it like ought to be is different than what is. I think that is the trauma response that is learned.
Interesting. Okay, so let me pair this back up with another example you gave and see if I'm mapping this on correctly. So a trauma response is going to be a what were the two things you said? You said it was trauma response versus like just a direct physical response?
Direct response,
okay.
Call it,
so like a physical response is going to be like you endure some stimulus that is negative and then you have like a predictable response in the future relating to it. But like a trauma response has to do with like an incongruency of narratives. So earlier you gave the example of like a conservative woman being like maritally, spousally raped or whatever. That like she might have like physical unpleasant feelings around like, fuck, like my husband wants to fuck me again, I don't want it, but I have to deal with this, blah, blah, blah. And she might have like a physically negative response to that. But until she's introduced to the concept of maybe spousal rape is bad and your husband is a piece of shit, she's not going to develop like that narratively driven trauma response until she's introduced to like that narrative that forms that incongruency between how men should be and how they are.
Yeah, basically. This is also the division I think I was like probing at you one of the other times we talked, which I don't know if you remember, but I was trying to like figure out if you had the sense of like the sharing of reality, like something should not be in yourself anywhere. I think like that sort of thing I was trying to probe at is the same kind of thing that I'm trying to refer to here, which I think you understand.
Huh. That's interesting. Because now if I tie that into that, because I think my response to that was that I've never felt that like sharing of reality seems like a really hard thing to feel.
Yeah, you might be completely untraumatized.
Yeah, but then and well, I feel that way, but I've had a lot of like shitty things happen to me. But maybe that's the reason why is if my expectations about the way that I navigate the world is a certain way, and I don't experience that sharing of reality. Therefore, I don't have that same necessarily the trauma thing. But I'm not sure. But I feel like hold on. Let me probe this Let me probe this thing a little bit more because I think we're starting to use these words a little bit differently. It's possible, for instance, that somebody without any narrative being formed at all, somebody could be like abused. Let's say somebody walks into a forest and a massive fucking spider jumps on them and bites them, and they get like a necrotizing fucking wound or some shit, and their shit is fucked. Okay, they go through a traumatic 1-month hospital stay, and then they come out. Without any societal narratives at all, this person could theoretically be like traumatized relating to like walking through forests or jungles or like going outside because they're worried about spiders. No, how does that fit your definition of like the trauma narrative versus like just like a direct physical response?
I would consider that in my like direct response category. Like, it seems like very reasonable to try to avoid walking in a forest if you're like assigning high odds that a spider jumps out at you.
But but the reason why I would consider that to be like maladaptive or a trauma response is because it's not necessarily rational, right? Like, it might have been literally a 1 out of 1,000 or 1 out of 1,000,000 event, and now you're worried about it happening every single time you go outside.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like the direct response category or something, and then like there's definitely parts of the direct response that are not rational. Like we have monkey brains.
Sure, I guess I'm having a hard time because what you would describe as like a direct response that is irrational sounds to me like another word for trauma. So like, for instance, let's say I see a man and I got raped before, and now I see a man and like my blood pressure increases and I start to get like actually anxious. That would be like a physical response that's irrational because not every man is going to rape me, right? That's that's a maladaptive thing in response to a traumatic event. But I feel like most people just call that trauma.
Yeah, I mean, we can call it trauma. I'm not attached to the words whatsoever. We can call it like that, like trauma 1, and then the societal narrative thing, trauma 2.
Sure.
And then the like initial healthy thing, like the direct response, like whatever. Yeah, I also think it's confusing because like trauma 1 and trauma 2 get conflated a lot, or it's like the boundaries between the two get unclear. Like, you can develop an automatic response like, I'm afraid of all men now because this man did a terrible thing to me. But like also you can become afraid of all men because society is telling you that you should be afraid of all men. And that's really hard to tease those two apart.
True. Huh. Okay. Do you have any final thoughts or anything else you want to add on this?
Am I about to get the classic, what is it, like, gotcha, anything else?
That was the gotcha. No, I'm just kidding. Well, if you have more thoughts, I just want to drag it out. I'm trying to. There's like a lot I have to think about. There's a lot of like unsettled stuff for me. I don't have like really strong opinions on any of this. It's like
Is there like a scenario that confuses you, like a specific one?
Well, if I'm giving you like my my ultra edgy personal opinion is that I don't think the vast majority of rape should be traumatic at all. That's my ultra edgy opinion. But most people obviously would revile at that. But then given further justification, my thought process would be that like in a world where we had a healthier engagement with sex, where it wasn't stigmatized as much, where women weren't stigmatized or demonized for having a high body count, and where people were a little bit more firm with like their relationships and boundaries, that like in my mind, but again, this might just be my emotional processing, like you could have you could have a rape sexual encounter with somebody. You go to a party, you get really drunk, too drunk, and then you wake up the next day and you're laying next to some guy and you're like, fuck, this guy fucking raped me. I did not want to have sex with this dude. Fuck me. And then you like wake up and you're like, this is fucking dumb. I shouldn't have gotten drunk. This asshole shouldn't have taken advantage of me. And you like walk away from it and like, that's it. You're like, I'm not going to fuck this guy and I'm not going to drink like around these people anymore. And this guy's an asshole rapist. But like, that's it. And then you walk away and you're good. But I don't know if what I'm saying there, I don't know if that's like completely and totally unrealistic or if it's like so socially reinforced that you should, or if there is something deeper happening where it's like, even without the social reinforcement, like people are still going to walk away feeling like incredibly horrible about that encounter.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a combo. I mean, like, I wouldn't be surprised if there were an argument that like we evolved to not like rape is like not good for us, like
For anybody,
as a
yeah.
female.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It's like not evolutionarily beneficial to have somebody, rape you.
Mm-hmm.
So like obviously, like I would not be shocked if there's some like deep psychological stuff that's like wrapped up in there, like some intense feeling of violation.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I don't know. I've been through a lot of like sexually aggressive experiences, and I'm like completely fine about it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like some evidence that it's possible.
Yeah. Or like, I feel like a lot of early, this is another edgy opinion. I feel like a lot of early teenage sexual experiences can be classified as like either highly coercive or like almost rape in terms of like, just because teenagers are so stupid and everybody so has no idea what's going on in terms of like how they engage with everything. And I wonder if, but like it seems like I would imagine as a species, we would mostly get through that untraumatized. Like it seems so weird that type of trauma would be like a necessary part of our sexual development, you know?
Yeah. Dude, because like there's so many like normal cultures where sexual assault of children is normal. I mean, not
Mm-hmm.
so many are ones where it's just like it's framed as a positive thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what are you saying? Are you claiming that like the act itself is inherently terrible, such that like all human beings in that culture must be carrying like intense trauma around this that they're repressing?
Well, but
That
there's
seems a little
probably, that is probably true to some extent, though, I would imagine, right? Like, I imagine a lot of women, I would imagine, probably feel pretty shitty around spousal rape. But it probably wasn't standard for a long time to talk about that, right? And it's just something you're expected to kind of endure, like childbirth. Like, your husband just wants to fuck you and you don't want it, right? And I imagine there's probably some negative feelings about that. I can't imagine they all liked being raped in the past by their husbands, but it was, like, so normalized that people didn't really talk about it, right?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm clicking some things. I don't know what's happening.
No, you're good.
Yeah, and I like the thing is like you could extrapolate like how many things right now are considered totally normal that we're just like accepting because it's part of the narrative. Like the medical one is an example. Like we probably feel very similarly about medical procedures as like wives did about spousal rape back in the day.
What do you mean by that?
Like medical procedures are sort of a necessary evil in order to achieve like the good of maintaining good health. And
Wait,
back
I'm
then,
so
like wives
confused.
like
What do you mean by what? I feel like most medical procedures aren't viewed as like necessary evil. Or what do you mean by that?
well, it's like you have to go through the unpleasant thing in order to have the good thing, which is being healthy. Like you have to go to the dentist and they stick a needle in your mouth, or they, I
Oh,
don't know,
okay, sure,
like you have to go
okay,
through an unpleasant experience.
gotcha. Okay, sure, okay.
But we in no way frame that unpleasant experience as traumatizing because we consider it to be necessary and good.
Yeah, I feel like there's a difference because there's I feel like it's disanalogous for two reasons. One is because oftentimes there's not somebody taking pleasure in your displeasure, right? Like in rape. And then two is because there's usually something good on the other side for that. Whereas for like, I don't know, spousal rape, or maybe your marriage, I guess, but.
Yeah, you're fulfilling your duty, your good duty as a wife,
Mm-hmm.
and you're getting like your husband's satisfaction out of it. But I don't know, is like someone else taking pleasure really like the linchpin for this?
Um, maybe, I think so. Do you think? I feel like a little bit of it is. I almost tie it back to, without reopening the whole can of worms, but I almost tie it back to like the deepfake thing a little bit, where somebody's able to like get pleasure out of you without you really wanting them to, without you consenting to it, and that feels like kind of disgusting. I think for the rape thing, I think there's a similar feeling, like that loss of agency is bolstered by the fact that somebody's able to get something out of your body that you don't want them to. I wonder if that's like where a lot of the feelings of like revulsion and disgust come from.
What about like a non-pleasurable rape? Like if you hypothetically had a scenario where somebody's like raping you dutifully, but like didn't really enjoy it, would that be less traumatizing?
I was gonna. I actually thought of that like 20 seconds ago, but I can't even think of an example where that would happen. Because like, because there's a lot of erotic I've read where you have like two guys are like locked in a jail, or like a woman and a guy, and they have to like fuck in order for them to be released or something, and neither of them like it. But like it's like such an impossible to imagine scenario where two people have to have sex and they're raping each other, and neither of them want it, but they have to. But that's like, it's really hard for me to imagine. Can you give me like an example of that, or?
I'm thinking like arranged marriages.
Yeah, but usually I feel like just because of the way we engage with sex, I feel like it's really hard to imagine men not almost always enjoying it, right? I feel like almost all of sex is framed around like the male orgasm. So it's hard to imagine like men not enjoying it to some extent, you know?
Yeah, I was like trying to think of like other incentives for having sex, but like ultimately you're getting something you want.
The guy at least usually is, right?
Yeah, and like the thing that you want can change, but
Mm-hmm.
I was just trying to like calibrate like how much of it is about the pleasure. Like what if you were raped by like a non-human, like an android? Let's say we get to the future and we have like a full robot who can run around and rape things, but it doesn't feel, it's not conscious. Or like an
I don't
animal.
know.
Like
Yeah,
if an
that's really
orangutan
interesting. I'm not
raped you.
sure. Okay, here, this is a wild one. What if you get like raped by somebody? This is like so impossible to even imagine. It's a worthless question. But like, let's say you get raped by somebody. You're a woman, you get raped by a man, and later on you find out that that man's family was going to be murdered if he didn't rape you, and the man is gay. Would you have a different feeling about it? Like, well, the guy that raped me, well, he's gay, so he didn't even really like it that much. Would that change it? I'm not sure. I truly have no idea. I don't know if you could even think of like hypothesize like that circumstance. I don't know.
But I mean, I do think that like our relationships to offense change when the motivation changes occurring in non-sexual scenarios. Like if somebody was really annoying at you and they were like taking pleasure in your pain, like I would have a very different response than if they were annoying me for any other reason, like accidentally or something.
Oh, I was going to respond with that earlier because you asked me, like, does the person taking pleasure actually change it after you gave the dentist example? Would you feel differently if when a dentist was, like, cleaning your teeth or something and they were, like, poking and prodding your gums, if they were, like, clearly exuberant, you know, like, does that hurt? You know, like that. And they're, like, not necessarily going harder, but you can tell they, like, really enjoy it when you're getting fucked up.
I think if I could have a guarantee that their pleasure is not translating to like increased pain for me, I would prefer that they have pleasure.
You really think
Would
so?
you?
Um,
Yes. I've thought about this a lot actually.
in a
Because I was
non-sexual
like,
way or
hey,
just in
why
a sexual way?
no, I mean, in a non-sexual way. I was like, well, if we could just like cause people to gain pleasure from like painful things in the world already, like would I press that button? And I think I would. Would you not? Would you not want your dentist to be like really getting off on, or like just normal pleasure? Let's say non-sexual pleasure because people have weird things around sexual pleasure. But there's just like experienced visceral
Yeah, like euphoria,
pleasure.
like they're really happy.
Yeah.
My intuition says that I would not like that. It would actually, I feel like I would be irritated if somebody was like enjoying my.
Why?
I don't know if I have a good reason why. That's intuitively I feel. Have you ever been skiing or snowboarding before?
No.
I tried to go skiing in Sweden, and probably the closest time I've ever come to wanting to viscerally murder someone was learning how to ski. Especially as a guy, whenever you fall over because of the way the snow boots stick up, like standing up from a fallen over position in snow boots that are strapped to skis is one of the most agonizing experiences. It's one of the hardest things to do. It's just standing up. It's so challenging. And I remember, I think it was like the fourth time I fell over, and like Melina came over to offer to like help me stand up, and these like 4-year-olds are zooming by me, and I was like, get the away from me, you I'll kill you if you touch. I was just so mad because I could tell that she was having a lot of fun because it was funny to her to watch me because I'm normally pretty good at whatever I do, but here I am, I look like a moron, I'm falling over all the time, and I know that she's enjoying it, Maybe, but I might just be a spiteful asshole. Maybe that's not normal. In my head, I'm getting irritated because I'm like, I hate that you're enjoying how agonizing this is for me. But maybe I'm just a dick.
Well, it also, I mean, maybe you just wanted empathy.
No, not really. I just wanted her to not look at me or just be anywhere at all near. But I also don't like watching people like watch me practice. Like if I played saxophone or piano, I don't want anybody to watch me practice. That might just be a personal hang up I have. I don't know how.
It's like shame.
I don't know if it's shame or not. It's just. Is it?
It sounds, I mean, my guess sounds like shame to me.
I don't think I'm ashamed. Like I think like people like to listen. Like playing piano is like an easy way for people to like. It's an enjoyable thing. They like listening to me play piano. They get like a good emotional feeling out of it. I'm not ashamed of it. Like I know that if they listen, they probably like it. But I just don't like if I'm just like playing something on my own. Or I'm like I don't want somebody to come in and like take. If I don't want to perform for somebody, I don't want to be giving a performance for somebody.
Oh wait, okay. So there's like the skiing thing, but then like the thing that you just described sounds like part of your brain is taken up by like tracking attention, and it's like difficult for you to pay full attention on the piano when you're tracking social attention.
No,
Those
it's
feel like
not.
different things
It's
to me.
not. It's not. It's not the tracking attention. It's that. The more we get into this, okay, I want to play the piano because I think that might be my personal autism. I don't know if that's like applicable to most people. If I'm like playing something and I like, let's say that I'm playing something. Oh, this happened to me one time. Sometimes when I went to school for music, one of the halls, there was a way to get into the building, and late at night, one of the halls would be open, and I could go in, and they had this huge Steinway grand piano, and in that room, the resonance was perfect. It sounded beautiful. I love playing on that. It was super, super, super fun, and I would go in sometimes if I wasn't working those nights. I would go in and I would play at night just because it's such an amazing room for acoustics. And one of the times I did it, when I went up outside, there were two people that were chatting. And when I came out, like, oh my gosh, that was so nice. Like, it was really beautiful listening to play. And I wanted to kill myself. I hated the fact that they were fucking standing there listening to me playing because I wasn't trying to put on a show or perform for anybody. It was just like a personal thing for me. And them like standing there listening just irritated the fuck out of me. But this might be like a personal autistic thing I have. It might not be like so I don't know how much that's relevant to anything else we talked about.
Okay, so let's choose your own adventure thing that we're doing right now. Do you want me to ask you more questions about that experience, or like go back to the original topic?
Well, I don't know. Wherever you want to go. What do you want to do? What do you want to talk about?
Well, I asked because I don't know.
I can talk about whatever you want to talk about. I just called you on a spur and I didn't give you any advance forewarning for this, so I don't want to like eat up like a ton of your time if you have like shit planned or whatever. That's what I'm. Yeah.
No, I got a dinner later tonight, but that's it.
Okay, then whichever direction you want to move in.
Yeah. Wait. Okay, wait. I completely forgot what we were talking about though. Oh yeah, your shame. Your deep.
It's not ashamed. I'm not ashamed. I know it sounds
your intense
nice.
Humiliation.
It's not humiliating. Well, I don't know if it's humiliating.
Like,
It's just
your pants down.
no. It's not that. It's just. What's the difference between that and somebody? Let's say you just have the best masturbation session ever. You got 7 different vibrators hooked up to every erogenous zone in your body, and then you found out afterwards that somebody was watching you, and they're like, "Wow, that was a sick performance, Aella." Would you not feel like a little bit irritated that they were like snooping on you and?
Well, yeah, but I think that sort of feeling comes from like having like the incongruence between like the me self and the other self. Like it's really scary to to be watched when you're not like being ready to be watched. Like you're acting differently than you would. And so it's like asymmetric information. It's really vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I actually think is going on. I don't think you're actually terrified of being humiliated.
What if you wouldn't do the thing if you knew somebody was listening? Oh, what's up?
Someone.
Uh-oh.
It just sounds like someone's banging on my house from the outside.
Nice. It's the snooper, dude.
Did you hear that?
He wanted to give his opinion. I can't hear it now.
Someone is literally just. Okay. I'm gonna
Oh
go
wait,
outside.
I hear that. Yeah, are you okay, buddy?
They're slamming on the wall. Hold on, I'm gonna go around.
Okay. You know she did.
Okay. I don't think I'm getting murdered.
Did you fight him off?
Well, somebody apparently is putting siding on. I'm renting my house, so
Oh,
I guess somebody decided to come do work on it.
nice.
But that thing had stopped.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, what were we doing?
I don't remember. You said something about humiliation. I said I don't feel humiliated. I think that's where we were.
Right. Oh yeah, because you just got caught with your pants down. I don't know. There's like I feel like you are just sort of your response to your environment. You're your response to other people. Do you hear that?
Not that much. It's okay. This is how it feels when my mic echoes and in your headphones. Now you understand the feeling, okay?
I can't even hear you because it sounds like somebody has a hammer slamming literally on the other side of my computer.
I mean, that's literally what if they're putting up siding, that's literally what they're doing. They're banging with a fucking hammer, probably putting something up, right?
Okay, but you are sort of like different people in response to different things in your environment, in response to different like groups or individuals, or if you're alone. And I think like not having the appropriate persona online for different types of environment is really disorienting and scary. Like, can you imagine like being the way you are around your parents versus like the way you are around your friends, and if you like swapped those personas?
It wouldn't. I'm the same always, but I know what you mean. Yeah, I know.
You kind of are.
Yeah, I am.
Actually.
But there would be some. If there was like a first date with a girl, and then I met her parents or something, and I walk in and they've got like my debate videos playing in the background, I'd probably be mortified because I would want to present myself more professionally than that, I think. Yeah, sure.
It's like your perception is outside of your control.
Yeah, the narrative control thing, yeah.
Okay, so there you go. So your perception is outside of your control and people are watching you play piano. Yes?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Yeah, that might be it. I think so.
Excellent.
Tentatively
Mystery
saying yes.
solved.
Okay, yeah. Good job.
What's the next mystery?
Yeah, do you think rape shouldn't be a big deal? You were saying yes. Just kidding.
Yes, that adequately summarizes my nuanced take. Okay.
Okay.
Should I show myself out? Or should I try and think of something else interesting to say?
I should be getting to this video, so if you have anything else on this topic, you can. Otherwise, we can reconvene tomorrow or the day after or something.
No, I think we're good then.
Okay.
Gotcha. Anything else?
Just fucking kill yourself. Bye. Or don't kill yourself. Whatever. I hope. Actually, you do. I hope you get triggered. Bye. Have
Really
fun.
just to spite you.
Yeah, true. Put me in the note. Okay, fuck you. Ooh. I just remember she was like, I'm worried you're going to tell me to kill myself one day. Rip. Okay, what do you want? Testing. 1, 2. Uh-oh.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, I was in the middle of doing dishes.
Good one.
All right. All right. So there are a few things I want to address. Okay. All right. First of all, you can't quantify trauma, right?
Well, what do you mean by that?
I mean, any quantification of trauma that you get is going to be on the basis of self-reporting. People who have different experiences are going to self-report their trauma in proportion to how it affected them.
Sure, but I mean, like, that's going to be true of every single thing we have to self-report, but we still try to find ways to quantify it. We have to for like pain is a subjective experience that we self-report. We issue drugs based on pain, right?
Well, right, but like I mean, this is why we have the opioid epidemic, right? I mean, you go in for knee surgery and you're like, oh, holy fuck, my knee is killing me. I need the strongest shit you got, doc. And they're like, oh man, this person's really in pain, compared to, you know, a woman going through childbirth. She gets knee surgery. She's like, oh, this is no big deal, you know?
Okay.
And so it's like, so you've got the example of the super conservative Christian woman who gets raped, and the super sleut who's like, I have sex with everybody.
Sorry, hold on, real quick, because people don't know. This is Lav, guys. We're talking to Lav right now. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, shut the fuck up.
Go ahead.
I hate you so much.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so, I mean, it's entirely possible that those two women... Honey, be quiet. I'm on the phone. Sorry, my dog. He hates it when I'm on the phone. Anyway, it's entirely possible that those two women can experience equal amounts of trauma, even though their circumstances are completely different.
Yeah, it could be, but my question was, would they generally, or would it generally diverge? I don't know. I don't know the answer.
I don't think that you can generally assess the amount of trauma that somebody's going to derive from an experience.
I think we can.
I mean, how? Like, if my house gets taken out by a hurricane and your house gets taken out by a hurricane, can we generally assess that you and I are going to experience the same thing? I don't think so.
It's not about experiencing anything, but generally, right? It's like the death of a child is generally going to be pretty traumatic to most parents. The death of a first dog or cat is going to be generally traumatic to a child. Like a rape is generally traumatic. Physical assault is generally traumatic. We can generalize a lot. Like we might not be able to say like you're experiencing 27 points of displeasure right now, but I think we can generally talk about people's traumas now.
I mean, we can generally say, yes, this thing is bad, but we can't generally say one person is going to experience more trauma than another person. It's so subjective that it's impossible to generalize. Like, yeah, both people are probably going to have a form of negative experience, but the degree of negative experience that they have is going to be, it's so personal that it's impossible to make generalizations about it, in my opinion.
I don't know if I agree. I feel like maybe, I'm not sure.
All right.
But okay, what else? Anything else?
Yeah, there's more. Okay.
Oh boy.
I can explain why rape is internally traumatizing using philosophy.
Oh boy, go ahead.
All right, let's break it down. So, the existentialists. Let's talk about them.
Okay.
So, your fundamental meaning as an individual derives from the way that you interact with the world, right? And this is the same for everybody. Men, women, doesn't matter. The essence of you as an individual is defined by your internal experiences and your external experiences, right?
Yeah, that's everything in the universe you've just described, but go ahead.
Right. But we're talking about people, Stephen.
Okay? Go ahead.
So, as individuals, we self-relate. How do I explain this? The way that we interact with our external world provides us with an internal sense of control, right? So I engage with my environment in a way that I choose, and for that reason, I feel not self-actualized. I mean, yeah, self-actualized. I feel self-actualized by engaging with my environment in a way that I choose, right? So when there are external occurrences that are not of my choosing, it undermines my sense of self-actualization, right?
Okay.
So, like getting jumped.
Before you... Oh, yeah, okay, go on.
Before I what?
Well, I was going to say, before you run down this road too much, I feel like whatever you're going to say about rape, I'm going to say about getting jumped. But it sounded like you were about to address that, so go for it. Go ahead.
Yeah, right. So when you get jumped, right, it's an external experience that you don't have any control over. And I think it is, to a certain degree, traumatizing because it undermines your sense of control over your environment, right? I would go so far as to say that to an extent, it undermines your sense of identity, because your identity is fundamentally based on exerting control over the things around you. Here you don't have control. A priori, your identity is undermined.
Okay.
With rape, I think the reason that it's intrinsically traumatizing is because it is an external experience, but it's also to a certain extent an internal experience, right? It's a literal physical violation. So now I'm put in this position where not only do I not have control over my environment, I don't even have control over my own internal experience. Like I have been stripped of every form of control that a human being is physically capable of exerting, both externally and internally.
Sure, but I'm going to like come back to that, and I'm going to say getting jumped is the same thing, no?
No, because it's purely an external experience.
Hold on. I'm going to fight you really hard. I think you're playing a word game here. Getting raped isn't, when you say external versus internal experience, it sounds to me like you're describing external in terms of environment versus internal, which is your own personal thoughts and feelings. Rape, even if something is going inside your body, is still an external experience. That's still external, the thoughts and feelings of the mind.
it's external to the thoughts and feelings of your mind, but it's internal in the sense that it's
Whatever you say, careful, because I'm going to apply to getting jumped, so choose your words carefully. Go ahead. Because if you're going to say, like, well, it's internal because somebody's doing something with your body that they don't want, so it's getting jumped. Somebody's getting something from you that you don't want them to get, so it's getting jumped. Right, but go ahead.
It's, okay. Think of it this way, right? Losing a hand is different from losing a kidney, right? Because one is outside of you and one is inside of you. It's fundamentally different.
Is
right?
it? Well, no. Is that what we really mean when you say internal, external?
It's no, but now I'm playing word games.
I mean, like, it is different, but like, I don't know how.
It's so like when I'm trying to communicate my thoughts, I'm having a hard time.
Oh, that's okay. That's, you know, it's internal, external.
Think you were gonna call me. So.
Oh well, you fucking spammed my shit saying you're getting triggered, so I did call you. Okay.
I am getting triggered, yeah, because this is what it fundamentally comes down to, right? Is like you have control over two things. You have control over yourself, and you have control over how that self interacts with the environment around you, right? And when you get raped, not only do you lose control over the environment, but you lose control over the self. And I sincerely don't think that's the same as getting jumped, right? Because having people, like, let's say you have 3 guys attack you from all different sides, right?
Okay.
It's still, I think, to a certain extent, an environmental experience, right? I mean, yeah, you're like having all of these panic thoughts. Holy shit, am I gonna die? I need to fight these guys off. What's gonna happen? Is this it? Is this the end? You know? Whereas when you're getting raped, it's such a visceral violation that it truly strips you of even the autonomy to consider what happens after this. How do I handle this? Right? It's
I understand what you're saying. Getting punched is pretty visceral.
I mean, yeah, but like, what if you got punched in your asshole and it went all the way inside you? That's objectively worse, right?
Yeah, but having somebody like punch me through the chest into my heart versus putting their dick in my asshole, I'd probably rather get the dick in my asshole.
Yeah, but no one's gonna punch you through your chest and into your heart.
Have you seen Doom Guy? He punches real hard.
I don't think he punches that hard, Steven.
Okay. All right, wrap it up. Give me your final thoughts. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, you know, rape, it's a really visceral experience. I don't think you can compare it to something that happens externally. It's the internal experience that really defines how traumatizing it is. And I think it's traumatizing regardless of what kind of situation you're in.
Okay. All right.
All right. I'm going to go finish my dishes. I'll stop spamming you now.
Okay,
have fun.
Be careful, don't die.
Bye.
Bye. All right, good. 27 hour fucking. Diversion. Let me use the restroom quick. Hold on 1 second.